Netflix's new limited series drama, Toxic Town, is based on a riveting true story of mothers who did everything in their power to get justice for their children. Toxic Town is one of several Netflix releases in 2025, and while it may not have as much name recognition as shows like You or Stranger Things, it is certainly worth a watch. The cast of Toxic Town includes major stars, such as Doctor Who's Jodie Whittaker, and they managed to take this real-life, years-long legal battle and turn it into an emotional, heartwarming, and gripping story on screen. The actual story of Corby, the town the limited series focuses on, is also riveting, though. The true story involves a small group of mothers who come together to prove that the mismanagement of toxic waste at toxic landfill waste sites in their town led to physical disabilities in their children. What ensues is an uphill legal battle, during which the mothers remain dedicated to getting justice for their children and their community, even in the face of seemingly impossible odds. The Corby environmental scandal explained. This real-life lawsuit addressed toxic waste mismanagement. Toxic Town. Jodie Whittaker standing on a bus looking very concerned. Toxic Town focuses on real-life mothers Susan McIntyre, Tracy Taylor, and Maggie Mahon, all of whom were living in the UK town, Corby, and had children with physical disabilities. Susan and Maggie's children were both born with limb differences, which was a very common occurrence in Corby at the time. Tragically, Tracy's daughter was born with physical disabilities as well, and she died at just 4 days old as a result. Because of the similarities not only between their children but also with many other children born in Corby, the mothers began to suspect that there was an environmental factor causing these limb differences and disabilities. The mothers therefore launched an investigation into the council of their town, uncovering what they believed to be a mismanagement of toxic waste at local landfill sites. With the help of journalists and, eventually, lawyers, the mothers ultimately brought a full-fledged lawsuit against the council. How long the town of Corby was impacted by atmospheric toxic waste. This exposure had gone on for years. Claudia Jesse looking upset in Toxic Town. While it was this group of mothers who finally brought this issue to light, the toxic waste in the town had been mismanaged for years, throughout the 1980s and 1990s. Evidently, even outside the impacts on newborn babies in the town, there were other symptoms of the dangerous environment, among them odd smells from the town's bodies of water and layers of dust on everything. The dust in particular was thought by some to have aggravated respiratory issues, including worsening asthma. Toxic Town primarily centers on the 3 aforementioned mothers, although the real-life case ended up including a staggering 19 total children across 18 different families. All in all, these families represented a span of 15 years during which pregnant mothers and newborn babies were being affected by these toxins. On top of that span, the lawsuit itself took another 10 years, meaning that, from start to finish, this community was affected by these toxins for decades. The toxic waste's connection to birth defects in Corby citizens explained. This toxic waste led to limb differences in the town's newborn babies. A mother, Jodie Whittaker, and son in Toxic Town. The lawsuit argued that the toxic landfill waste sites nearby had been improperly managed from the time the steel plants once on the land were shut down in 1979, allowing the toxins to travel to local residents. The specific toxins of concern included boron, nickel, zinc, and arsenic. These sites were meant to have been safely cleaned up, but that was evidently not the case, as the land continued to have levels of these toxins that exceeded the environmental safety guidelines by a wide margin. Initially, it seemed as though the toxins were affecting residents of Corby through the water, but it was eventually confirmed that the pollutants were airborne, which was a defining moment in the case. When pregnant mothers were exposed to these toxins, their unborn children were affected in myriad ways. The toxins specifically led to various limb differences in newborns, including clubfeet and hands without fingers, among others. It was no easy feat to prove this was the case, though. At one point in the trial, the council had expert witnesses testify that there was no way for the dust to have reached the mothers and affected them. At the time, there was also no legal precedent in England for pointing to toxins or pollution as the cause of disabilities in infants and children. With their ceaseless efforts, however, the mothers were able to secure an incredible outcome. Ruling and settlement for the Corby toxic waste case explained. The mothers of Corby were victorious in their legal battle. Although this legal battle went on for years, and it often felt as though there was no chance of winning, in the end, the mothers won their lawsuit, which made it a groundbreaking case. The council members were held liable, and they were required to pay not only for the legal fees of the opposing team but also a substantial settlement. It has since been disclosed that the total amount of this settlement was £14.6 million, which was not publicly known at the time. The court specifically found that the council's failure to follow proper procedures led to the release of toxic waste that affected the dust and the mud of the town, both in public spaces and, ultimately, in private homes as well. In fact, evidence was even presented that suggested vehicles themselves were carrying these toxins, including on their wheels. In addition to the mechanism of dispersion, the judge was sufficiently convinced that these toxins were capable of leading to the types of disabilities and limb differences seen in the children of Corby. Why the Corby toxic waste case was so historically significant. This was a foundational case linking toxic waste to birth defects. Jodie Whittaker speaking to a reporter standing next to her son in Toxic Town. As has been mentioned, prior to the Corby case, there hadn't been a lawsuit in England that had successfully proven a connection between toxic pollution and disabilities or birth differences. This was a landmark case, and it is still considered one of the most important cases regarding environmental justice in the UK. This also had some concrete implications for safe practices moving forward. Because of what happened in Corby, industry standards changed to prevent a similar issue from ever taking place again. Evidently, even insurance companies working with groups that are clearing and/or cleaning up similar sites will cite the Corby case as a reminder of the proper approaches. Netflix's Toxic Town is a brilliant new limited series, but there is an equally affecting true story behind the show that deserves recognition too.